What's going on, y'all? My name is Joltage, and today we're back for the final week of the LPL 6 regular season for some LCUU recap action. With me, once again, you know me, love him, it's Kip.
Hello.
Alongside him is Zero.
Hey guys, how we doing?
You know him too, but you don't love him.
Yeah, you know. Kip's.
I think people do love me.
That's debatable, man. That's debatable.
It is.
But last but certainly not least, making his channel and podcast debut, we've got Hiss.
Hello everyone, how are you doing today, gentlemen?
All right, and Hiss hasn't actually played this season, but he's been building like a madman for Albinson. And
yeah, I've been Albinson's builder. I think I built every single one of his teams except for one. So yeah. I know some things about the meta.
Yeah, so definitely knows what he's talking about. At least more than
so
like
former
JC.
LCU Cup champion.
No, true.
Oh yeah, that's also probably important.
But yeah, so it'll be cool to get another new face in here. Let's get right into the action this week. We had first up we had Kip versus Quest, and this game really foreshadows something we saw a lot of this week, and that was a lot of Magby. Showed up in every single one of the games, but that's a bit of a spoiler. Kip, why don't you walk us through your mindset heading into the game, knowing that your team was already out of playoff contention, so it really didn't matter for you.
Yeah, it really didn't matter, and I had a lot of work this week. The shop I work at decided to do an entire interior makeover. Ooh. So while I did a lot of building, not a lot of it was Pokemon. But I just decided to slap on some threats. I saw Magby be very dangerous in all of KSG's games. So I was like, you know what, I might as well bring it. I brought Munchlax again because Munchlax has been really good both for me and against me. And then I realized my team was very weak to Meowth, so I slapped on a Kabuto on what first was a Sandshrew.
I like that.
Right, Robert. One more thing. So, I had this berry juice Cardney that didn't really matter much in this game, but I thought it was a funny thing to try.
Yeah, it was cute. I enjoyed it.
That was definitely something we haven't seen yet. Cottonee has strictly been EVO like this entire tour, I think. If not, I haven't noticed it being something else.
Maybe. Did we bring Life Orb?
I don't think you did. Because I don't think you brought a Woobat team, and that's what I would assume the Life Orb Cat would be on. But I could be wrong.
Anyway,
that is a Jock's tech though, for sure. So
it is a Jock's move.
He might have. Anyway, looking at Quest's team, y'all actually had quite y'all had a few mons.
Similar core.
Similar core of Magby, Pancham, Kot, Natu. Oh wow, it was 4 of 6. And then
offensive water.
Yep. Offensive water.
I don't think any of our besides the Magby, I don't think any of our mons had the same sets though. Because I had Scarf Natu. I'm pretty sure his was Eviolite.
Yes.
We already went over the Cottonee. I had Berry Juice, and my Pancham was 26 HP, 15 defense, so I could switch into Sandshrew and leave it alone a lot better.
Fat Panda. We haven't seen one of those.
Did you say 26 HP?
Yep.
I really like that. I think bulk in this meta is really good, and so having extra bulk on Pancham is actually probably really good compared to like the 6-15 speed that we've been seeing for most people.
Yeah. No, that's definitely pretty cool. We haven't seen Fat Panda. Fat Panda used to be the not that fat, but slower, bulkier Panda used to be the norm a lot last gen, especially with like 11 speed being like the standard set. So it's cool to see like that, something more like that come back in vogue. Let's see if we'll see if it catches on at all. I know Quest's team was initially built by KSG, though Quest made some modifications to it based on his preferences. He he's changed the Pancham from parting shot to gunk shot. I mean, from gunk shot to parting shot rather, because he got burned in a test game versus me versus my Larvesta because he couldn't pivot out. And then he also dropped Encore on his Cottony because he just doesn't like that move, which is an opinion.
Well, I was very scared of it.
Yeah.
When I was trying to sweep with my Munchlax.
Yeah. But yeah, he opted for the Tailwind. I mean, it's just a pretty standard like double Life Orb mon, like in the Carvanha and Magby, and standard like bulkier core to back it up. His Natu didn't have U-turn. It was instead Giga Drain, which you kind of need when you don't have Encore on your Cottony. But yeah, I felt like this was a fairly straightforward win for you.
Yeah.
Throughout.
I mean, I got kind of lucky with the freeze on his Pancham, of course, which made it way more free for my Munchlax to set up a curse, because even though his Pancham was a 20 and likely would have been worn down at some point that early, it meant I could just take away 3 of his Pokemon in the mid game, and it helped more than I think it looked like at the surface.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, getting frozen always sucks. But, you were just getting revenge for me for him freezing my Cottony last game. And
Exactly.
I appreciate that. Did anyone else have any observations on this game in particular?
I know you said that Magby usage was really high, but the thing I noticed here was this also started the Pancham usage, because I think most people were starting to prep for non-Carvanha meta, and so I feel like almost every team had a Pancham this week. I think all but 2. So this was kind of the start of that as well.
No, that's a good shout. I somehow overlooked it just because in my mind Pancham is just like the ubiquitous thing, but it hasn't been quite that this season, so that's definitely...
There's been 3. There were 3 without Pancham, but
there's 3.
Still, yeah.
Okay, so just as many.
Still, I mean, it's still quite a bit of Pancham usage, compared to previous weeks. So.
Exactly.
Good shout.
And I know certain matchups, Gentlemen's to no Carvanha with it being banned midweek. Mine and I think Zero's also. We're going like that, which is, a shame because I was actually going to bring Carvanha, and I probably, I was going to bring Carvanha initially, but it's whatever. The game didn't matter for me. But yeah, no, definitely good shot on the Pancham. Kip, actually, you ran Ice Punch Pancham. You just didn't want to miss Gunk Shot?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Well, I figured, but that, and sometimes you're in versus an Entru, and you have either a Cottony or a Natu in the back, and you just don't want to think.
No, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
I also was Iron Fist.
Well,
so
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's the nice set. Yep.
If you've got the Ice Punch, you might as well be Iron Fist. I just will never run Ice Punch, and you can take that to the bank.
Fair.
We will take that to the bank.
Exactly. So, prep for non-Ice Punch Panda. Not that it changes anything for it.
No. You're still gonna hit everything you ever want.
Exactly.
Kip, was the Kabu Aqua Jet?
No. It was a liquidation.
Right.
So the speed tie in the end sort of mattered, but I had a Scarf Natu in the back, so...
That's right. You're not too with Scarf, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. I've used a bit of Scarf Natu in the past. It's one of the Scarfers that I'm most okay with. We know I'm anti-Scarfer in general, but it's fine,
Yeah.
It
does its thing.
Yeah, I do like the Kabuto though as a Meowth check. And you have to watch out for Seed Bomb, of course, but with the weak armor you can kind of really threaten it, and you don't really need the Aqua Jet once you're faster than everything. And Kabuto hits surprisingly hard with its 85 base attack that it has.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the Aqua Jet mostly for, whether or not the Magby wanted to stay in and Mach Punch.
Yeah, that's definitely
or
fair.
Thunder Punch or whatever. Or Thunder Punch or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you often end up picking big versus you often end up picking like liquidation or / waterfall versus aquajet on Kabuto, and then you've got like knock and your rock stab to deal with.
Right.
It's kind of tough to work everything in there along with rapid spin and stealth rock.
I didn't have rock stab.
Yeah, I figured because
Yeah.
rock stab's only good for Joltik. Really.
Not nice for not to, but yeah.
But you've got knock, so.
Yeah, but normally knock into spin is fine versus wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think we've talked enough about this game. Let's get into the next one, where it was Zero versus Bag of Tricks here, and you can see double Stunky here, along with double A Dig, but nothing else is the same here. Zero, why don't you talk us through your team since we got you here, and how you felt the match played out?
Yeah, I was messing with a few other things leading up to this, but ended up settling on a like relatively, somewhat conventional team. The kind of deck here was Scarf Pump Kaboo. Otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward team. I was expecting Trix to bring Meowth. I know he's a big Meowth fan. He and JC also have been running a lot of Q-Fan and Sandshrew. So that was kind of where we got the pump from. Goldeen looked really good there. And the Dig and the Panchain also looked really good there. So that's kind of what I was looking for. And, it's funny, like, he didn't bring any of those mons, but I kind of feel like I had a pretty demonic matchup here, like, in my favor.
Especially Goldeen.
Yeah, Goldeen really just like went to town on this team. This is kind of like one of the issues with like running Magby and Elekid at the same time is like you just kind of you get really hard walled by Goldeen, and you're also super vulnerable to ground stab. So that combined with Stunky and Dig, I mean, if this had been a sand team, could have been even uglier than it was. But no, I mean, Trix did his thing. I'm not a huge fan of Slowpoke. I also did have the weird Megahorn Goldeen, which I do not think should be standard at all. I was a little nervous about Lileep. Lileep is really hard for my team to break. So, if Pancham isn't healthy. So, like I had actually tested with his before this game, one of his teams had an offensive Lileep and it just fucked me up. So I was like, okay. I went from the Poison Jab Goldeen to Megahorn, and it came in very clutch. I mean, I wasn't too worried about the Slowpoke. Like, I had lots of ways to break it, but, it was pretty...
helps.
Yeah, it was just... It was pretty easy for me to take the momentum here. The end game... I kind of risked a couple speed ties, but I felt pretty comfortable that even if I lost those speed ties with a Dig, I had enough ways to clean up the Magby and the Dig. A misplay that I made was that I had Sludge Bomb on my Stunky. So when we were Stunky 1v1, after I crunched, I hit him with Fire Blast from Pumpkaboo, so he was burned. That was a pretty lucky burn.
Oh, yeah.
And after the burn chip, Sludge Bomb would have killed him because I was life 4. So I didn't need to crunch again and take my Stunky out with the Aftermath. I could have kept Stunky in. Although I thought that was kind of a misplay initially because I was like, oh man, if I had Stunky there still, I could have like cleaned this up even faster. But then I realized that would have let a Dig in, and then I would have had to deal with that. So it kind of worked out fine. But, if I wanted to kind of whatever. Anyway, that was just one thing that I was sort of looking at. I don't know. I mean, I think I was like the biggest thing that I was worried about in the game was actually Oddish, and yeah, I think he was probably running a decent amount of special attack on that. Oddish was hitting pretty hard. I mean, whatever. Scarf Pumpkaboo probably isn't going to take a lot from anything, but. Getting the poison was a little scary after initially switching my Natu in, kind of just fearing the sleep powder. So then I threw the pump in on the second. oddish interaction. But, you know, again, I think I just had plenty of firepower to deal with it, especially after it was knocked. And Golding was able to take it out. So yeah, it was a pretty straightforward win for me. I think Trix is a cool player, super nice guy. So just play.
Yes.
Slowpoke is pretty bad though.
Yeah. I mean,
this
team.
I may disagree, but I think Slowpoke is pretty good, and it kind of fills the same niche as Goldeen for a lot of these teams, as long as you don't need the electric resist. But it can get pivoted on a little bit easier than Goldeen can.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the problem. Like, and this is the thing. It's like you could try to use Slowpoke the way you use Goldeen, but not really, because Slowpoke is a fast offensive pivot, and Slowpoke is able to like knock things off, break things down. Has coverage to break through its checks, whereas like Slowpoke just gets U-turned on and like is just kind of a momentum seeker. I mean, obviously teleport, you know, you can use to bring in, you know, threats on your team, but like I don't think Slowpoke actually the meta is too offensive for Slowpoke to be able to switch in like enough times for that to actually be very viable. Like, I think everything is so frail and Slowpoke takes so much damage that I just don't think it really works very well.
I think that's pretty fair. Even looking versus your team, this is probably like one of the best matchups Slowpoke could find if it wasn't feature side. If it was just like teleport, slack off, either dual stab or skull plus like a fire move, it had like a pretty good matchup, but it can't fit everything it wants on it, and so it can kind of get overwhelmed with even just basic mons that it should beat.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I think Slowpoke is bulky enough to handle some of the stuff. It's just like there's a lot that hits it super effectively because Psychic sucks defensively. And there's so much knockoff, U-turn, and then you've got like your like electrics and stuff to deal with. Which is one of the reasons that like the Goldeen analogous to Slowpoke thing didn't really ring true for me, because one of Goldeen's best like features is that it checks Magby and Elekid better than most things, and Slowpoke checks Magby fine, but unless it's belly drum and has belly drummed, but like Elekid obviously is not something Slowpoke wants to deal with. But I mean, you probably use them for different things, obviously. In that case,
the main thing is difference checking is that you're not checking electrics, but you're checking fighting types instead. So yeah, I mean, normally electrics is a harder slot to check, but yeah,
you're only
fighting
really
scary knock though.
Yeah, you're only really kind of checking Krogunk. Like, you don't really check Pancham.
Yeah, you check Gunk okay though.
Or you check non-SD Pancham.
But you like soft check Pancham, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know what the roles are, but I don't think you're.
I mean,
I don't think you're outcoming Pancham.
I think
ever.
I'm not sure exactly. I haven't looked at a calc lately, but I mean, you're not really scared of being knocked like initially. Like, you can take one and do like a T-Wave or hope for a Scald Burn, or obviously click Psychic like fairly reasonably, and then regen back up if you really want to against Pancham. Like, it's not that bad. The issue just comes that like you take so many hits, and like if you don't run slack off, then you have to regen up to get some health, and you're so slow that I don't know. Slowpoke's just really tough to make work, in my opinion. Though I do understand the concept of like you've got two life orb breakers in Magby and Elekid. You want to get them in safely, so obviously Slowpoke's teleport is great for that. Plus the future sight can really start forcing some really tough spots for the opponent. So I understand the concept. I don't like how ground weak the team is. Slowpoke's the ground resist, along with Oddish, but Slowpoke's bulkier. So it's a better.
Oddish also isn't like a ground resist. Like,
yeah, which is why.
Yeah.
Like, they're both neutral to ground, and Slowpoke's bulkier, which is why Slowpoke is the ground resist. But again, the ground types, like specifically Sandshrew, is gonna have knockoff. Though Slowpoke is very good against a lowland Diglett. That cannot be misrepresented. But it didn't really get to shine too much in this game because it just got Goldeened, and Goldeen went off.
He went in
best
Goldeen.
Yeah.
It's still sad that it's not Water Veil SD, but it's okay.
Yeah, in the test before, his was like, "Oh man, you're really frillish weak." He was like, "What if you were water hail?" It's like, "Oh my god." Um, I thought about it for a second, but I was like, no, I'm not sacrificing like the electric like matchup, the Magby matchup. Like we
You
need
can
this.
bluff it.
No, of
Yeah,
course.
no
That's
one, no
that's
one
the whole
took the
idea.
electric move there, and it would have bluffed perfectly fine versus this, but
True.
uh, so close.
Yeah. We'll save that one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just see it in playoffs, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on to the next one? Or are we cool? I'll
No,
take
we're
that.
cool.
All right. And the next one is my game, the 05 Dream that I was going for to get the completely defeated season up against Pamp. So it was
Perfect season.
that's what I'm saying. We were up against Pamp, so it was
So
it was a
close.
likely option. As Pamp is impossible to prep for, and he brought out Sun. Luckily, Chlorophyll is
Sunwebs.
banned. Sunwebs. Luckily, Chlorophyll is banned because Bulbasaur obviously would have ripped through me if it wasn't. Yeah. My team, my team was already out for playoff contention, so I really didn't really care that much. I was initially going to run Carvana on a Hail team with Blizzard, just because, and that team also had like Calm Mind, Larvesta on it, and a Trubbish with Spikes and Pain Split. But he wanted a Gentleman's No Carve, so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I ended up bringing another team I just had in my builder based around a concept I've kind of been toying with of Future Sight, Natu plus Sandile, because Future Sight is cool, one, and number two, like the things that switch into Future Sight are Stunky, because that's our only dark type, unless you are Pamp is the one that could run other dark types, specifically like Zoro and stuff. He has run Zoro, but I didn't expect Zoro or Sandile. But anyway, so it's Stunky or like Steel types, and none of those want to switch into Sandile,
Yeah.
and the things that can switch into Sandile pretty okay don't necessarily want to be switching into that Future Sight. So I thought it was a cool idea and way to make Sandile shine. The rest of the team is kind of fairly straightforward. We have an unorthodox spinner for me. I didn't want to run a Shrew, and I didn't want to run regular Shrew because I already had a ground type in Sandile, so I ran defensive Squirtle with rapid spin, obviously, flip turn, Scald, and then last move was Mirror Coat, just cuz.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I was thinking about running both counter and Mirror Coat,
Give
but
him a taste of his own meta sign.
exactly. But mine was EDO rather than Berry Juice, and really was Mirror Coat because it could live a Joltik like Volt Switch and kill it. And kill whatever came in, obviously. Because I felt like I was kind of Joltik weak, which is why Magby comes in to just be a fast fire type. But yeah, so the game was kind of interesting. I got pretty lucky with my safety goggles Sandile, dodging 2 sleep powders. It wasn't actually safety goggles. I was just making a joke because I dodged sleep powders like that. But yeah, the sun was scary, especially the Charmander, who I only had 1 fire resist because Magby doesn't count. Especially naive Magby, which I was. So, like Charmander in particular was really scary. But we were able to. Sandile was able to put in a lot of work in this game, getting an Earthquake, dodging some sleep powder, getting off Earthquakes, dodging sleep powders. And my Future Sight tech didn't really get to work because Pamp's Grubbin was actually able to 1v1 my Natu because it had Electro Web, which for some reason I just haven't seen yet. And I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. I was able to take on my Natu, but the Future Sight I feel forced to KO that next turn on the Grubbin, which prevented the webs from going up by me going into Magby because nothing could come in and take the Fire Blast plus the Future Sight other than Munchlax, but Munchlax was Belly Drum as we found out later. And
Yeah, what I wanted to say, I know Pamp has posted teams by now, so we know the sets. But during the game, when I saw the 3 attacks and no stab yet, I was like, are we sure this is sticky web?
Right. Just like a weird offensive grubbin.
There's no
It's
way.
Pamplona after all.
There's no way he would run non-sticky web. That wouldn't make sense. Like, you'd run like Joltik instead there. Like, the same thing.
Like, that has ever stopped him.
Yeah.
Joltik's not baiting in Natu though, so.
True. That's very true, but I don't think Natu was a primary concern for him with the Stunky and then Scarf Charmander and stuff, but who knows?
I think if it had been like a weird pure offensive lure, it would have been easy to kill the Natu faster.
Yeah.
Doesn't do that much damage too.
But yeah. Like I said, I got really lucky dodging the sleep powder twice with my Sandile. On that second one, I thought about staying in with my Cot and going for the roll to kill the bulb with sleep powder, but I only run 15 speed Cot, and I didn't want to risk a speed tie there, so I just made the Sandile play and was rewarded. So that worked out in my favor. But yeah, I kind of got pretty lucky in this game. But I'll take those. It killed the 05 dream, but I needed a win. I needed a win somewhere. Remember, I'm only worth 3K next LPL, Tarantino. Just 3K.
I mean, I'm not managing next LPL, so.
So, but yeah, I probably should have lost if I didn't dodge the sleep powders. I probably feel like I lose. Because Sandal was able to do so much for me, and probably wouldn't if it had gotten slept like it was supposed to. But it's kind of hard to say at the same time whether or not, like how things play out from there. I feel like it was just tough to gauge what was actually supposed to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was cool to see Sandal put in work, but again, it was totally clean. I think the idea that Pamp brought is interesting. Sun is just, without an auto setter, pretty tough. Manual Sun.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It also
We've been seeing some Sun. Sorry, go ahead, Joltage.
I was just saying, like the lack of chlorophyll is what really just kind of.
Yeah.
Because.
Well, we've been seeing some Manual Sun experimentation in LCOU. Several core games recently have featured. Yep, Serene Grace, Lily. Lily just brought Sun versus KSG.
Lily was 5 fire types in the Nomura, so
that sounds
she
like
had a weather ball Mora.
That sounds like a legit team.
Hey, that actually clutched his playoffs. So
that was definitely like a this week doesn't matter team, but when you have Vulpix around, fire is super fucking dangerous. Or Sun, I should say. I think in LCUU, it's a lot less viable. But Pam's gonna try his wacky stuff.
I don't even like it in LCOU. Serene tested a team versus me before. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely
it's
gimmicky thing.
It might be because I brought the Mantike team and I got a super insane matchup,
the Mantike team. the Mantike LCOU man.
Mantike was one of the few Charmander switch-ins, actually, so I respect it.
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
But yeah, not much else to say about this one. He went double grass, which was kind of weird. I know Pumpkaboo was there because he decided it was the best spin blocker for his team, which makes sense, seeing as you don't want to run Frillish on that. I guess he could have run Golett, especially seeing how weak I was to it last week, but he opted for
but he could use the ground resist.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Because he's not too worried about electric types between Lax and his grasses. He's not that worried about it, but Oh. Yeah. Anyway, last game we had Coco, LCTL, making her LCUU debut because the week did not matter at all for her team. They just randomized the lineup, and she was up against Albinson, who this team was built by you, Hayes, as well.
Yes, it was.
All right.
Yeah.
You also brought webs. What was the?
Yeah, we had already clutched the week, so it's okay if we bring something a little bit more fun.
Okay. You just just wanted to use webs then, just cause it's kind of old school.
Yeah,
actually.
kind of. I'm very cheese adverse in like everything that I play, and so even just like these kind of fast Megby hyper offense teams is not what I'm super comfortable with my players bringing or for me building. So this is like the 1 week where it's like I will build cheese for you. I threw on some kind of interesting sets. Like this didn't come out, but it's Shadow Ball Natu and for the Natu mirror in order to like try to get webs up as often as possible.
I like that.
And Pancham is Thunder Punch plus Ice Punch and SD on webs instead of like
Bolt beam punches.
Yeah,
This is
it's
definitely
just like it's just trying to hit everything. Like no point trying to like only hit caught or whatever. Just get as much good coverage as you can.
Mm-hmm.
This is team. You'll see it later. It's Sub Joltik. That's actually like I said. I've been trying to find for a while, but you don't need to pivot on webs, which is why I feel like you can run sub more often on it because Joltik does force a lot of switches into other mons. So I guess with rocks up, you're punishing a lot more, but on webs, it's easier to run it on your team. And then it put in a little bit of work. It helped versus the Tortuga under light screen. But yeah, in the end, this team it's timid frillish, but it doesn't really matter if you don't have webs up because then you just kind of lose to Magby. So I don't really blame the way Albinson played it, but you basically need to get webs up in order to win the game. And there's a couple lures for not to, but they just didn't hit, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like it was definitely tough between. Coco just brought the most like one of the most HO teams we've seen this entire tour.
Demon, HO, whatever you can do.
I thought it was weird to see a Woobat without like obvious support other than screens, but like there's no like maybe it was just Evio or Berry Juice or something, but
yeah, I'm assuming it's just Evio Nasty Plot, to be honest.
Yeah,
it might be Sub Juice plot, but
yeah, it's I don't know, it was just weird. Most of the time, obviously Woobat's not a major player in our metagame like it is in LCOU right now because of the lack of Grookey, but I don't know, yeah. Like, when we have seen it, it has often been with a Cottony to set grassy terrain in sort of a poor man's Grook bat type thing. So, it was weird to see it alone. But we saw BD Magby finally actually belly drum up in a game and actually pull it home. Yeah, once it got up, you just kind of didn't have anything for it on that team, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so.
And that's part of the reason why. And again, like, we're known for running Meow. At least for when people say like what they prep about us, is that we run Mouse. So I again didn't expect Magby. Like the counterplay is kind of niche, and that you need to be under webs to beat it. But it didn't really matter. So it's just whatever.
That's definitely
fair.
It's definitely fair. But yeah, so those were our games this week. Like I said, a lot of them didn't matter. But we saw, at least 3 of them didn't matter actually because of various circumstances. Y'all had already clinched the week. Me and Kip were already out. I think Zero, you were fighting for playoffs. So yours mattered.
Yeah,
but
my game actually clinched playoffs for us.
Good job.
Nice.
Wow, good job.
Clutch.
Thanks.
But yeah, so that wraps up the season basically. Are the usage stats updated yet? Actually,
I just asked a sec, and he didn't understand what I was saying. So, I guess they're not.
Very nice.
The week 7.
Oh no, he did put them.
Yeah, okay.
He did put them in.
The week 7. Yeah, they're up.
Yeah, let's see.
At least for this week, I don't know if the cumulative ones are up or if they're updated.
He usually does them. Let's see.
I would assume they are done at the same time. We've got 28 cot usages.
8. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
This looks.
Wow, I'm actually surprised Pancham's above Krogunk. That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, no, this is right.
Pancham has been above Krogunk all season.
Yeah.
Wow.
It doesn't feel like it, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's look at these final stats. Cottony obviously is number one. Cottony is the glue of the tier and was so critical to a lot of team constructions and being able to deal with various threats, including Carvana, who is now banned. It was banned pretty much unanimously, which was a bit of a shock to me. Only
Except for DC.
Yeah, only DC was the dissenting vote, which is to be expected with him. But
Exactly.
yeah. So that's no longer around. But yeah, Cottony number one in usage, close to a 50% win rate. Early on in the season, people were like, Cottony has a low win rate. Is it bad? And no, it's not.
Hey, that was me. It wasn't
Hey,
people,
look at-
it was
look
just
at-
me.
Look at Sanchu's win rate and look where everyone's putting in their personal viability rankings.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's actually, I'm surprised Sandshaw's win rate's so low, actually. Diglett, I'm also surprised to be just as used as Sandshrew with such a high one. Such a high win rate.
61% win rate, pretty wild.
That's pretty.
Yeah, that's
pretty
the
solid.
highest of any of the top 10.
Yeah, but Magby's at 72 at 12, and it's only like 2 uses away from top 10, so yeah.
True.
No, this
And
is
Goldie, 60,
Yeah.
right there. My boy Pump, 75% win rate.
Yeah, that's all
But
pumped
a
together.
lot fewer uses. But those of us who use them, we know.
Yeah,
Church
it's
of
all-
Pumpkaboo.
Yeah. So yeah, these are pretty interesting. There was not as much Meowth usage throughout the season as I would have expected, with only 7 brings the whole year. For a mon that I personally am always just freaking out about. Like,
I think part of it is that everyone's prepping so hard for Meowth because people think that the meta's kind of overloaded, so you have to throw your Steel type or your Ghost type that isn't super knock reliant or EV reliant to check it, and so
yeah, it's
You're-
Meowth is hard to fit. Like,
Meowth is
I
hard to fit.
considered bringing it 2 or 3 weeks, and whenever I was building up, I just couldn't get my defensive core around it to work.
that's
And because of that, I think the usage is lower than it would have been in other metas.
That's definitely a good shout. I also don't use Meowth for similar reasons, that it's just kind of hard to fit in your defensive cores and things like that. But Meowth is so annoying.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
especially because now people are using the knock U-turn set, which is just, in my opinion, way better than Double Edge because everything that wants to check it doesn't like losing its EV light.
Yeah, it's tough. Also down here in the usage that I'm kind of surprised at is Omanite only got 5 uses. I'm kind of surprised about that because I think we all think Oma's good, but obviously Krogunk was pretty at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, and Cottony is the number 1 usage. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but I would have expected heading into the season to at least see a bit more of Oma in particular.
Yep.
And we've seen even less Tortuga.
Yeah,
Yeah.
though Tortuga won all but one of its games, and the one it lost was when I brought it.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's okay. I still think it's okay.
It's okay, but it's. Are you okay though?
Maybe we'll see.
He's getting his swag back. It's happening.
Yeah.
The comeback is on.
I mean, Tortuga is even slower than Omanite, so even more things can pick it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it could take one a little bit better. But yeah, it's a little bit more of a sitting duck. Yeah, I would expect that in the future we will see more Oma usage. That thing is very dangerous.
Especially now that Carve is gone.
Yep.
Yeah. As long as I counted correctly, we had a total of 63 different Mons show up over the course of the season, which is pretty good for
Pretty amazing.
the sample that we had, and shows the
LCUU best meta.
it shows the real diversity we've got going on in this tier. I'd be surprised if OU got that much, and they play obviously a lot more games.
Something I want to note with having so many mons is that so many of the mons that have like between 5 and 2 uses have pretty high win rates in general too. It's not that they're like niche mons and then got brought once and lose. It's like some of these mons you really have to prep for too. For like stuff like Baltoy as your ground type is pretty different to checking than Sandshrew because of its access to Ice Beam and Psychic. And same with stuff like Golett was really picking up usage by the end, and Corefish is at least my preferred water type choice.
Yeah, me too. I think Golett should be at 5 uses. We might have to double check some of these because I think that also the Pumpkaboo numbers look maybe slightly he's got Pumpkaboo with a star.
Yeah,
that's
all the
all forms, and then the individual forms are the hyphenated ones.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, so the most used Pumpkaboo was apparently Pumpkaboo normal.
That's because
that's Pamp.
Pamp brought it.
Yep.
Yeah.
What I find interesting too is that Helioptile is only at 2 uses compared to the other electrics at Elekid at 8 and Joltik at 17, considering it's really not that much worse than them and occupies a very unique niche of being immune to water moves.
Yeah,
I think Vacuum Wave weakness was a fear for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I also think people just kind of slept on it in general. I know the 1 week I ran into it, I was like, fuck. This ruins my entire plan.
I think that was the only time it was used outside of, I think it was that and the JC Rain team.
Oh, don't remind me.
Yeah.
So I think this one you faced was a bit of a better example of the types of teams it probably fits on better than a more cheese-oriented playstyle.
Yes,
for sure.
No, I'm a huge Helioptile fan. I didn't bring him for this main season, but maybe we'll reunite in the near future.
Yeah, I still think it's good. I've been a longtime fan of Helioptile myself. Specifically, it's been the only Scarfer I've ever liked in this tier, so that's cool going for it. But I didn't run a single Scarfmon this entire season, so.
And yet Golett has 100% win rate.
Hey man.
Golett
wasn't even Scarf every time.
One of those was not Scarf.
Yeah.
Actually.
Pant brought non-Scarf.
But
on webs, I think?
Pant brought EVO. Yeah, it was the EVO. Was that the webs? Yeah, that was the webs team, the double ghost webs, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Pamp went and Pamp posted all of his teams from this season in the LCUU discussion thread on the forum, so go check that out.
Check that out
if you haven't done so.
For sure. Actually, speaking of Pamp, a lot of our 63 overall mons were a direct result of Pamp, who was very much
single-use Pamp.
Different meta than a lot of us in terms of his builds.
He's LCRU plus, and we're playing LCOU minus.
Yeah. Perfect.
I'm just looking at it. What I'm really surprised about is Mantike had a low 1 use and no wins. What happened?
It was only brought in that rain game by JC.
Yeah. I mean, those of us who have had close relationships with Mantike in the past, we all long for glory days, but it's tough when you got Elekid Joltik running around, just waiting to volt switch as soon as they can. I mean, I still think it's a solid mon. It's just a bit of a tough meta for it, I think, right now.
Yeah,
that could change in the near future.
I used it in a couple builds that I was thinking about throughout the season, but I never ended up actually bringing it. I wanted to, but it just, I don't know. Like you said, Joltik and Elekid being pretty prevalent is just kind of like, I don't really want to run that right now. And then Magby.
That also accumulated. Sorry, go ahead.
What's up?
That also accumulated in the 0 uses of Shellos in this tour, which is formerly a mainstay of the tier, but now it's fallen off.
I mean, in this podcast, we've definitely contributed to some anti-Shellos propaganda.
specifically
But,
Kip and Zero. I've not messed with Shellos much, but yeah, it just can't really do as much with its passivity. I don't think it's like as bad as like warranting zero usage, especially when you have things like Skorupi, Shelmet, Darumaka getting used.
Who would bring Shelmet?
Hey man, I stand by Shelmet being like not the worst mon to be brought this season.
No, that's Hone Edge, right?
Yes, for sure. 100% win rate Hone Edge is definitely worse than Shelmet.
Okay, what does everyone think the worst mon that was brought this season was?
It has to be Togepi. That is an interesting
Togepi.
mod.
I forgot there was a Togepi.
Yeah, it's probably Togepi. I might say Inkay as well because I hate Inkay. But it's really not as bad as Togepi. I just want to hate on Inkay. Whoa, hold on one sec. Larvesta only had 2 uses. What are we doing?
Did I have both Larvesta uses or no?
People
Or someone else might
sleeping.
have used it.
You definitely had one of them against me because I couldn't catch it with my Weather Ball Snover.
The people are asleep.
I think there's 5 or 6 teams that I have made of. Like half the teams I made for this tour had Larvesta on. Never brought the Larvesta out.
Wow. Larvesta is definitely better than that, people. Don't sleep on Larvesta. But it only got 2 uses. That's crazy. Damn, Slowpoke got more uses.
I mean,
than
I
Larvesta.
get that it feels risky. That Stealth Rock weakness is super scary, and people usually don't want to run boots. That's not a thing we do in LC.
Except on my one sand team, but
Yeah, except on your sample sand team that everybody uses in the room tour every week.
No, dude, people.
But anyway, I think Larvesta is quite potent and has awesome qualities. It's a great Pancham switch in. It checks Cottony. It just fucks up all kinds of stuff. It's
I was the other Larvesta usage because it
Right.
was versus you.
It's a bulky pivot. It can hit super hard. It's a cool
it can
mod.
do a lot of things.
And that's ignoring the super secret tech set.
Yes.
Calm Mind.
Don't reveal. Yeah, it's Calm Mind.
Just
Mark my
spoiling
words,
it.
that will be used
We
once in
talked about it
playoffs.
before.
We've all talked about it.
Yeah. But I was gonna bring Larvesta this week, and so was Zero. We both ended up not doing so.
Hilton and I tested like earlier in the week, and we both brought Calm Mind for Larvesta. It was a good moment. Yeah. Great minds.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so now JC isn't here. Can we talk about Munchlax and how good it is?
Yeah, man.
All right,
It
I
feels
was
good.
definitely
It
I was
feels
definitely
good.
hating on Munchlax initially. It felt really passive to me, but it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that the meta, compared to what I went in with my Mensa initially, is very specially oriented right now. Between like Stunky and Natu and Cottony and Joltik and Frillish and even like the special Magbies that have been being used instead of Belly Drum, like it walls a lot of those. And so you don't have to worry, maybe not Cottony because it's gonna get knocked off in Encore, but the double edge set is 2K-wing the fighting checks, like it can do a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I definitely think Double Edge is the better move, especially because with Double Edge you can sort of choose when you pop your Berry Juice,
Right.
and because you're usually slower than the most knockoff Pokemon, it can be extra difficult to knock away the Berry Juice. I think it's really strong because of that.
Yeah, no, I never thought Munchlax was like terrible. I think I was one of the first to actually bring it when in my first game where I lost against KSG. I don't know if that was the first bring, but I definitely picked up more as the weeks went on. But yeah, no, Munchlax is really, really solid. I know Pamp used it a few times, brought Belly Drum twice, once in Trick Room.
Choice Band once.
Choice Band once, because he has to run weird stuff. Kip brought Curse, beat me with it. Kip got beat with Curse himself.
Kid beat Quest with Curse
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, the cycle of Munchlax.
Yeah. No, Munchlax definitely is nowhere near as bad as JC will have you believe, but JC also thinks that Natu's a problem, and Natu's not. So, let's not
All right,
I
listen
mean,
to
Natu's
him.
going anyway.
Natu is going anyway. We actually were talking about that for the cast, where we were going over what is probably coming in this next shift, which we're getting at the end of the month. Natu and Woobat are gone, and we're most likely to get Archon and Dwebble, so that's going to be interesting, but obviously a topic for another time more so. Any final observations from these usage stats, what we expect for playoffs? We know the playoff teams, which are the WAP veterans whose UU is KSG. We've got the Riolus, who is Albinson and Hiss. We've got the Omanites, who's JC and whoever he has slotted in. And then last is the Azurals, which is Zero and Jocks. So I think we've got an okay pool in the playoffs. The pool in general is kind of close together in terms of record.
Super close.
Me bringing up the rear, I think no one had less than 2 losses that played like more than 3 games, I guess. Or yeah, it was close.
2 games, right?
Yeah.
I just need KSG to not win both playoff games, so I'm the best record.
Hey man, he took it from me in playoffs last season, so I wouldn't count on it.
I mean, if
We'll
he
be
gets
defeating
it,
Ghost
he
next
gets
week.
it.
Okay.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah. So that should be an interesting one. So it'll be likely KSG versus either Jocks or Zero, whoever they have slotted in. Maybe Zero, because Jocks might be in SS. I don't want to reveal.
Probably, but TBD.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then we'll have Albinson versus Trix has been their starter lately, but it could be JC. He's likely putting himself in doubles. Who knows? But should be interesting. I think the Munchlax train will probably keep on going. I think after looking at these stats, we might see a bit less Sandshrew, whose win rate is really low, actually.
Well, I have something else to mention about the usage stats.
What's up?
I don't think any of the electrics have above a 50% win rate, which is kind of surprising, considering how much you have to prep for them in the builder.
Yeah, Elekid is really bad at 25% win rate. And then Helio is 50% exactly because JC tanked
But it's
it.
only 2. Yeah. And then, Joltik is 41%, which is interesting as well.
Yeah. So maybe
I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't really pinpoint why. But there's something about Elekid that to me feels a little flimsy. Maybe it's because you typically run Life Orb and like minus Def Nature so that you can be mixed. Maybe you go minus Spadef, but you're still not really tanking much, right? And I find Elekid a little hard to build around. Like, it is super fast and it does have the great coverage, but I don't know. Like, we were talking before the call about kind of this question of like, okay, who's your electric pivot? I think most of us have been gravitating toward Joltik for the bulk, the excellent coverage, and some interesting resistances. Joltik kind of has this position that, even though Joltik does have those qualities, it isn't really able to punish the things that it wants to switch into, which is true to a degree, right? I mean, your Thunderbolt probably does like somewhere between 37 and 43 to a Pancham, right? So you're not like taking it out, but you can't really, right? So that's kind of, that is a shortcoming that Joltik has, but I still think it overall helps teams have better glue and like better defensive kind of competency than having Elekid does, and I think that's reflected in the win rate usage stats. That's just my take.
I mean, that's all true. What's also true is that 3 of Elekid's breaks were with Slowpoke, because people were like, oh, we're gonna bring it in safely with Teleport, but...
And
think it
Slowpoke
just-
does have a 0% win rate.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and one of Elekid's other brings was in a team I brought, so obviously that was a loss.
Yes.
But I still think Elekid. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Joltik is definitely like the more splashable Mon for a lot of people. I just prefer the offensive capabilities of Elekid being faster and like actually having like super effective coverage on, say, Pancham, for example, and even like Diglett A, who rose in popularity throughout the season, for sure.
In turn, because it does check Joltik,
Yeah.
whereas other grounds lose to it.
Yeah, so I like that particularly about Elekid, which is why I think Elekid is a little better, despite the usage and win rate saying the opposite. But,
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, definitely interesting. And to be honest, I also just haven't used electrics much this season, so, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to go on a little tangent here briefly, just because, and this may be a little silly or funny to some of our listeners here, but because Joltage, you mentioned that JC thinks Natu is a potentially problematic Mon for the meta, and Kip just kind of has been conducting this survey asking LCUU players for their list of top 20 Mons in the tier. We've had some pretty cool lists submitted and shared in the LPL LCU discussion channel, and I think we've had some somewhat uniform results, but part of that exercise has also been trying to highlight some of the problematic Mons that we think are still contributing to some of the instability of the tier. And I think it's a little early to make a really solid determination on that, post carve ban. But I think, people have a sense, right, of the things that are, causing some issues. So JC has on several occasions brought up both Natu and Joltik. And so I guess my
Also
point
Krogan,
here is
but-
Joltage. Yeah, and also Krogan. Joltage, do you mind, or Kip, or Hiss, all of you guys, maybe saying a little bit about what you guys think would constitute a problematic Mon in the meta, and maybe why we think Natu isn't that.
Well, I considered marking Natu as problematic as well. I think it's very good. Obviously, it's second in the usage stats, has basically 50% win rate. The reason I didn't is because it has somewhat of a 4-move slot syndrome. It can carry Heat Wave, Roost, U-Turn, Giga Drain, Psychic, Thunder Wave, maybe even all at once. And if you run max speed, you cap out at 12 in both defenses, usually, or you need to run a really low special attack stat.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it has to choose most of the time, I don't think it's very broken. What I did mark were Amora and Magby. I think Magby's coverage is insane, and what Elekid can't do, what Magby can do, is hit 15 in both offenses, which really helps out for its damage output. Like KSG said, I think in week 2, for the elemental punches, it changes a lot of the rolls, and because of that, Magby just does so much more damage. And that's why I think that's the #1 problem right now, but we'll have to see where we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really have a sense of anything being particularly problematic post Carve. Carve was really the only thing I was seeing as like really a problem for you in terms of what it forced you to bring, forcing so much cot, really incentivizing so much gunk usage, and the way Carve warped the meta by forcing so much cot and gunk, which in turn led to so much just like random poison coverage showing up on things to enable the Carvana's partners. Obviously, Carvana's win rate over the tour was not good. It was only like it only won a third of the games it showed up in, but I think the outsized effect it had in the metas was ultimately negative. Natu, for example, doesn't have this outsized effect on things. We're not using we're like the cheese like screen set that's gotten it popular in OU, which is why we're losing it at the shift at the end of the month. Isn't really what Natu does here. Natu is just a good like fighting check primarily in that it checks Krogunk, it checks Pancham. It's also good against your webs. It does work against Sandshrew. It's just a good core mon. It's a glue mon in this tier more so than a cheeser or a sweeper or anything that is causing undue pressure on the builder, at least in my eyes. I'm never worried about, oh man, what do I do about a Natu? I mean, yeah, Natu has the coverage to be able to really just take over some games, but like if you have a stunky, Natu's not doing anything. There are plenty of faster mons than Natu. You at least speed tie with it on other things that can threaten it, like Joltik and things like that. And Joltik's not OHKO'd by a heat wave either. Natu in particular just doesn't have this like Carvana level effect that made me think of Carvana's broken. And I don't see anything as having that level of effect. Magby's probably the closest, but I just think Magby's really good right now, more so than broken, because I don't think the belly drum set is that good, because I feel like it's harder to actually set up. If the belly drum set, if I thought the belly drum set was better, I'd obviously think Magby was problematic, but I think that Life Orb's a better set for it, and I love its Life Orb set, and just like I think it's a fair mon to deal with in general, and that's why I don't really feel anything is super problematic right now. And these are just my personal thoughts, and these could prove to be wrong as the meta develops, especially post Carve. But for right now, I don't really see anything as particularly as an issue, really.
Personally, for me, I kind of came into the meta as a bit of an outsider because I didn't play LCE prior to the startup tournament, and so that's where I got most of my meta takes going into the season. And for that, I noticed that the meta pre that and compared to now is pretty warped. And I would say actually genuinely that is because of Natu. I used a lot of spike stacks for the tour and sand and stuff that directly punishes using Ponyta rather than Natu. But if you notice here, there hasn't been a single Budu usage. Trubbish usage is very low, so instead of like a hazard stack meta that it kind of was, it's now much more offensive, but also less bulky in the sense that you have to check everything once or twice, and then after that, the game kind of gets away on you. With that said, Natu is probably the best glue in the tier, and is needed in order to facilitate most of the playstyles that exist right now. And so, I don't know, thinking of it as problematic is also puts everyone in a weird position where if you want to ban it because it's removing some counterplay in some aspects, you're also removing your counterplay to some other mons that could be potentially very problematic if the mon were to go, such as like Pancham might be very hard to check. Stuff like Cottony doesn't have a very consistent switch in anymore. And even Meowth can get pressured by it if it's not running the knockoff set.
Yeah, the spikes angle is something that is definitely true. I haven't run Budu specifically because Natu is that is an area where I feel like Natu really prohibits or precludes me from using that strategy. I tried. I was on a big try to use spikes kick. Middle of the season, but I never ended up really bringing it. In the bunny team that I brought with Bunnelby, the Bunnelby was initially spikes as like a doesn't want to switch in on Bunnelby type idea as just to try to set the thing, but obviously it's not really the greatest of options. to use Bunnelby as your spiker, and nor was Bunnelby's main job to be a spiker. It was just more of a Greninja type thing from last gen's OU, if any of you have any familiarity with that, where it would come in and like threaten stuff out, and on that you could like set a spike or whatever, and that was the idea on that. But I do think that is a worthwhile thing of to bring up there. I do think the meta is a lot more offensive than it was in that startup tour for sure, as evidenced by the speed creep and everything, and you just don't have time to set hazards, I feel like.
Yeah.
And besides that, most spikers, like Trubbish and Badu, already were more niche picks, even in the bulkier meta.
Mm-hmm.
They were better because now they were almost non-existent. But yeah, the meta is sort of warped by Natu, but I don't think you can directly correlate the low usage of spikes to Natu being as good as it is right now.
Yeah, I think removal in the tier is also just like pretty strong in general between the shrews, Natu, got, things like you have to like that are less common but like still very viable, like Defog Cottony and Defog Stunky. Like we have tons. It's not like in OU where there's literally like 2 options for hazard removal, It's like we have tons. So, I also don't know that I think that like I think like your spike stack teams that you used in the startup were very anti-meta. Like I don't think spike stack was like a dominant play style at all in the previous.
Very, very, very well be. I could be. I just looked at the viability rankings and was kind of trying to piece together what I thought would be good against what was common at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that like those teams were like really effective in the previous meta, and I think those are strong insights. But I don't think that it was ever like used very widely. I think Reese did bring up a Budu Spikes team against me last LPL, and definitely punished me pretty good. But I don't think that like hazard stack has ever been a huge play style this gen. But it's true that Natu is certainly like a factor that prohibits that, in addition to like the plethora of other removal and like hazard deterrent options we have. And I don't know. It's interesting. Like, I don't know if I see Magby as problematic per se. Like, I definitely don't think Natu or Joltik are problematic. Like, I think they're very good wands. I think they definitely exert a strong influence on the meta. But I don't to say that they're problematic. Like, I don't think teams like have a dearth of options to deal with them, or like they overwhelmingly like influence the like the outcome of games in a way where it like takes things away from the play. Like I just don't quite see it that way. I actually sort of feel like Omanite is potentially something that could be kind of busted. We haven't seen a ton of Omanite usage or exploration. I just think if you don't have a kind of emergency Omanite stop, whether that's an Encore or a Tailwind Cottony, as we saw in my unfortunate game earlier this season, or like a healthy grass type to check it, like it just 6-0s. And it also has a totally unutilized, I think. Maybe Jova did use it in that second game, but a fairly underexplored spike stack set, or hazard stack set. I think it's a super dangerous mon. So, I mean, is it problematic at this point? Doesn't necessarily seem so, but definitely, I think in my mind, has the potential to be. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about in terms of the sort of feeling around for what else could be an issue here. But I wonder if the meta starts to trend back in a more bulky direction. Like we'll see, through these playoffs and then into future, future games, like if how this like sort of life orb heavy offense speed crept meta, persists, or if people start to kind of, build against that.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for sure with such a major shift in us getting rid of Carve in particular. Yeah, I don't know where I was going after that actually. Omanite is an interesting one to bring up because, like you said, we haven't really seen it explored much. It had an 80% win rate with its 5 usage this season, and I've as a long time like LCers who started in ORS, like I know the power of Omanite. You need a check to it on every team if it's in a meta, but between like Cot and Gunk and other things, I haven't felt like I've been weak to Omanite simply because like I'm running Cot on so much anyway that like as long as I have Cot, Oma is not gonna set up and sweep me, because I mean it could predict on the ice beam, but I can deal with it later after that. But I don't know. I haven't felt too bad about it. It could change though, because like we said, like you mentioned, it hasn't been explored much, but I haven't felt that pressure so far, at least.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, Fritish still sort of checks it.
Yeah,
it checks it really well, actually.
Yeah, but sometimes you can set up a second shell smash.
Yeah, if you're smashed twice, I think you're.
So it either checks really well or it doesn't check at all. And then there's still Mach Punch from Magby, of course. I really feel like it has enough checks as of right now. It might become a thing like Carvana, where you can check enough options to get rid of those checks, and then it becomes a problem again. But for now, I don't see it as a problem.
I'm worried that we also haven't seen it on like super cheese teams. Like I know, was this one of the first times you've seen screens was this week versus Coconut versus Albinson, but they brought a Tortuga in that slot instead. But I feel like Omni is way more threatening than Tortuga is offensively, and behind screens you're able to set up so easily, and you can set up, again, you said you can set up a second shell smash for Frillish, but you can probably set up a third one under screens, and then the game's absolutely over. But you're also not nearly as weak to priority under screens, and there's so many things like you can go wrong with like very cheese teams using Omanite.
As a note, on the Omanite versus Tortuga thing, Omanite is better offensively because it's faster and like stronger, but if you run Life Orb Tortuga, which you could under screens, or Life Orb Tortuga can take everything out really easily, as long as it hits its moves. Which is the set I brought. I just want to say Tortuga, Life Orb, run it, it's dope. And Natu has trouble with like Frillish still. I mean, like you can set up a second smash, but like if you gotta eat a hit doing that, and Frillish does have Giga Drain, guys. It is an option if like it really got that bad.
Don't tell them.
But so it's not like you can just set up for free on it or anything. But yeah, no, Omanite's cool and stuff. But I can see why someone might be like, yeah, man, it's really scary, because it's a really scary mock for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you guys that it hasn't necessarily shown that it's problematic at this moment, but it definitely feels like people could start building ways for it to be kind of almost like a card level thing. Yeah,
who knows, maybe this week was the kickstart it needed.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe, but I think we've had a lot of good discussion in this one. This is a long one. We're in hour 15 about. So let's.
I'm sorry, guys. It's my first podcast now, so we're lang. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're fine, dude. I love talking about this stuff. So it's not my issue. It's the viewer's issue. But that is what it is.
The viewer will suffer.
Yeah.
They're dedicated. They love it.
Exactly. But we will wrap this up at this point. If you actually made it this far, kudos to you. Buy yourself an ice cream or something. If you enjoyed, please feel free to hit the like button, comment, some thoughts on the stuff we talked about. I think we had a lot of really interesting metagame discussion in this one that I think was really good. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Stay subscribed for more competitive LCUU content. We'll be doing these for the playoff recaps. Hopefully they'll be shorter with less games and everything to talk about. But who knows? We could just talk about the meta for an hour. Yeah, I wouldn't bet on it. And then we're hopefully going to have some more LCUU competitive opportunities in the future coming up here. We're working on that behind the scenes, and I'm also gonna start working on a couple content ideas for this based on building in this tier. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully I maintain my motivation. But like I said, if you enjoyed, come on back, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
See you guys.
Yeah.